This is how to sell using DISC communication techniques, and I think several of you know me. We've been on other webinars together, so I want to give you some different thoughts and perspectives to help with your sales process and sales interactions going forward. And we're going to talk about extended DISC. It's a tool, it's a assessment that's out there that you can find a vendor yourself and take the assessment to really get a better feel for your own personality. But I'm going to give you some of the highlights of that today as we walk through this. There we go. All right, so first let me give you an overview of DISC, and then we'll talk about why it's I think it's a better way to try and build bonding and rapport with the people you're interacting with versus, you know, looking at the latest pictures or the sports teams that they follow. So DISC is a behavioral assessment tool based on the DISC theory. Psychologist William Moulton Marston developed this, and it centers on 4 different quadrants or different behavioral traits: dominant, influencer, steadiness, and correctness. And you may hear those 4 categories called a few different things. Like sometimes steadiness is called stable relator, or correctness is cautious thinker. But they're all essentially the same, even though the names are a little bit different. It's this 4-quadrant model, and it's really based on people being task or people-oriented and reserved and active. And each one of us have more, lean more one way than the other, and how we process information. And that's what I want to talk through today, because as all of you know, in sales, the key is getting your message across. And if you can understand how people perceive information better and you can tap into that, then you have a much better chance of getting your message across than if you can't. So a couple key points to keep in mind. None of the styles are better or worse. Now, the funny point here is there's probably some styles that rub you the wrong way and you're going to think that's better or worse. But the truth is, it's just how you perceive and process information. All have strengths and all have development areas. The style doesn't limit us. It just predicts how we tend to do things. And the one thing that employers and companies have done is they use these assessments to try and help fit people better into certain situations. So if there's a position that someone has to be very active and high energy, the DISC profile, if it comes out that way, not that any of us can't do the opposite, but we have to expend a lot more energy, and over time that may cause us not to do as well in a certain area. So that's why companies use this to try and identify if they can handle the type of position that's there. But we find successful people representing all of the styles. And as an example on sales, historically, as we get into these, there was one category that was thought to be where a salesman had to fall to be successful. And over time now, we found that not to be the case. So I'll talk more about that when we get there. All right, so here's the 4 styles listed. The color represents, the D is for dominance, the I is for influence, the S is for steadiness, and the C is for correctness. And once again, all of these behaviors are just how you prefer to interact with people. It doesn't mean that you can't do the other, but it's more of your natural progression is to fall into one of these categories. And you can have some parts in the others as well. So if you look at the slide here, it shows task-oriented. So the top half, the The C's and the D's are going to be focused more on tasks. And then if you look on the left and the right side, as you're facing it, they're going to be active. The dominance and the influence are going to be active. And then the C's and the S's are much more reserved. And I'm going to talk through each one of these categories. I've got slides for each one to give you some real characteristics to look for, and then even for you to think about and try and envision some people you know that might fit into those definitions. All right. So I'm not sure if everybody knows who this gentleman is that I have pictured, but this is Mike Ditka, who used to coach the Chicago Bears back in the 80s. And Mike was a classic dominant personality, very decisive, tough, strong-willed, competitive, demanding, independent, and self-centered. And that's how he processes and delivers information. Under pressure, he really doesn't care, or didn't really care about anyone's feelings. His greatest fear was losses of control and giving that up to someone else. And the motto that he followed is he does it his way. Now, his favorite question is what? You know, what do you want done? What are you going to have or going to do for me type of thing is what he's looking for. So let's give you some more stats about the D style. It makes up 14% of the U.S. population and about 12% worldwide. And here's the key about these styles. As we talk through this, you're going to really come to understand these people are pretty easy to spot in a crowd. They're the ones moving faster or faster pace than most of the others, and they really are decisive of what they're doing. They're most aggressive and assertive. They want to be in charge and have the power. They move fast. They get things done. And they may often want to just create change. They feel that status quo is falling behind. And as I said, you know, these people are very demanding. Now, at first blush meeting them, a lot of times you think, you know, how can anybody get along with this person? Because they're so task-oriented. And it's not they're doing a personal judgment or anything like that. They're just saying we need to get things done, and that's their focus. And I've, you know, some of the first people I remember, first job I had, I worked for someone that was a very high D, and it was very difficult for me to understand that they would be very upset over a task that they might just ask me to do a minute ago if I didn't have it done, but then later on they'd come over and say, hey, you want to go to lunch? Because it's not a personal thing. It's just that's how they process information. If you give them something to do, they're going to do it quick and be emphatic with it, and that's what they expect from others. So the communication style is usually one direction. They usually don't want to hear too much what you have to say. They're going to express their opinions as facts. Whether they are or not, they're going to say it like it is, so they give a lot of confidence in their opinions. They're blunt and they challenge others. And this is all about getting tasks accomplished. They usually interrupt others because they want them to get on with it. And that's, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's one thing, or one of the things I want you to be aware of when you're having a sales interaction. If someone is a D style, if you take too much time, you're going to frustrate them. Excuse me, allergies are real bad right now for me, so I had to take a sip of water. But they are going to challenge you to be quick and decisive and move forward. How to identify, they're always in a hurry, got to get this done right now. They're direct, they're blunt, they're demanding, and they're very impatient. And I know all of us can be impatient at different times, but this is really, in their communication style, that this really comes across. Like, as an example, you could be sitting in a meeting, first time, you just sat down and they're looking at their watch because they want to get this thing going, right? So what I'd like you to do is take a second and try and picture someone you know like this. It could even be you, right? And as I said, there's not a right and wrong. It's just understanding how you like to process information and receive it. All right, so that's the D style. Oh, I'm sorry, they get easily irritated as well. All right, so an I style person is very sociable, talkative, open, enthusiastic, energetic, and persuasive. Under pressure, they're disorganized, their fear is social rejection. The motto is everyone should like me or everyone likes me. And the favorite question is who else is coming with us? All right, and I have a picture of Ellen DeGeneres here who I think kind of gives you a pretty good visual of someone who's you know, a strong I style or influencer style. And this is the one category that I alluded to earlier to say that early on people thought to be a good salesperson you had to be an influencer, willing to talk to anybody, very sociable, and comfortable in crowds and wanting to be the center of attention. However, over time, we found out that sometimes, as it shows here on this slide, that rejection, and not just social, just rejection, is, you know, is a great fear of someone who's an influencer. We may not be willing to ask tough questions to really understand whether they're serious about doing business or they're giving you all the information they need, or what the underlying issues are, because we fear that rejection, that they're going to get offended. And if you understand that, you can push through that. But a lot of people, it's just like, you know, talking about money. A lot of people don't like to talk about money, and influencers have usually have a hard time with this because they're afraid of that rejection. Okay, so this, like I said, used to be thought to be what you had to have. You had to hire someone that was high in the I personality, influencer, to be a good salesperson. And over time, the statistics have proved that to be wrong. And that's why I said there's not one group in these four categories that determines that you're going to be a good salesperson or a bad salesperson. But the key is understanding these categories so you can communicate better with people, and then you can all be more successful. All right, so some of the stats on the I side, it makes up 32% of the population, U.S. population. So you can see, you know, that's a bigger swath. And you know, it's easy to see people that are outgoing, social, and we're going to talk about some differences between, subtle differences between the styles. But these are the people that are more influencing, interactive, bring people together. They like to have a group. They usually don't like to be on their own, talkative, optimistic, and lively. They may be inattentive to details. They're not really so much going to get caught up in details as they are the bigger picture, the higher level view of things. And you know, as a salesperson, that can be frustrating too if you're dealing with someone like that. And that's why you have to understand that you know how to approach them to build a better bond with them, right? You're going to have to talk to them about, you know, what they did over the weekend, and you're going to have to talk to them about some initiatives they have on, and then reel them back in because they can tend to get off subject. But then you're building that comfort level where they're willing to tell you more of the details. All right. Their style is selling and inspiring, talks a lot, but not about details, avoids unpleasant topics, and good at providing positive, constructive feedback. But once again, the other thing that, you know, that the key, in my opinion, to selling is the second bullet there, talks a lot. They don't listen as much because they want to be the voice and be the center of attention. And they're not always very direct because, once again, they care about other people's feelings towards them, and they might be a little less willing to be direct. So you want to look for people that are open and friendly. They talk a lot, right? And I know we can make jokes there about, there's a lot of people that talk a lot. They're animated, and so they're going to talk with, their hands and be demonstrative in their movements. And they tend to stay off subject. They can be easily distracted, all right? So think about someone in your daily sphere that you know that might be like this, or even you, okay? And once we get through all four, then we'll start talking about ways to observe and recognize the different styles. They usually like to stay away from the hard facts because, once again, that could cause conflict. And conflict means rejection. They don't like that much conflict. All right, so the next style, steadiness, the S style, is very calm, steady, careful, patient, family-oriented, good listener, modest, trustworthy. Under pressure, they can be too willing to try to help and think of others more than themselves. Fear, the loss of stability is a big fear of theirs. And the motto is, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. Favorite question is how? How are we going to do that? And I've got a picture here of Mother Teresa, who, for those of you who don't know, gave her life to serving those less fortunate. And it was all about helping others as much as she could. And that's kind of where you see kind of the S style, is that they really do like to see others succeed, and they like stability and steadiness in their communication. Now, I will tell you that S styles are usually the hardest people to make decisions because when they make a decision, that means they're going to change, or they have to make a change, and they have to tell someone that they're going a different direction. So from a sales perspective, that's pretty strong if you can identify the S style, because you're going to have to build a pretty good case, and you can't push people too hard because they're going to rail back against not only you, but just the thought of change. And once again, you're trying to build that trust and bond with someone to get to an honest conversation. All right, so they make up 27% of the U.S. population. So you can see the S style and the I style are, a big swath. And as I said, the D personality is a smaller, but they're much easier to spot a D than these other styles, much easier. They're steady, calm, laid back, like interaction with people, but more reserved than and that should say I styles, not S styles, I'm sorry. So the S styles like the interaction with people, but they like to be in the room, not the center of the room, where the I's like to be more the center. They prefer stability and security, like things to remain the same. And once again, that's why I say they're the hardest folks to deal with from a sales perspective. Fairness and justice are very important. They want to make sure everyone has the equal opportunity, and there's not something that is deceitful. So they're very strong on getting everything out in the open and being honest, because it's all about helping everyone and keeping that stability. So the style is they're usually one direction as well. Answers when asked, but they don't offer a whole lot of information. Calm and thorough, creates trust. Talks about topics that they master. They don't like talking about something they don't really have a good handle on, because that gets them out of their comfort zone. The other thing is that you'll get them talking about their family a lot, because that's very important to them, how they fit in. They like one-on-one situations better. They don't like to be in a group, because once again, that distracts from them really working with someone and getting a better understanding. So they look for easygoing and appears calm, listens carefully, nods, and goes along. They like to think about things. Once again, as I said, they're the hard ones to get to make a sales decision because they really want to think about it, and they're going to have to tell someone no, based on the decision, or they may have to, and that's very daunting for them. They seem to have strong opinions, but they don't really express them vocally. You might see more body language here of head nods and that type of thing versus really being vocal about their opinions. So take a moment and picture someone that's, fits into that realm. New ideas, things make him or her uncomfortable because the thought of doing something different means they're going to have to kind of change their routine or that steadiness. And that's difficult for them to wrap their arms around. All right. So in the C style, the last of the four, and then I'm going to go into more about how to really try to observe and recognize. But the C styles are very precise. They follow rules. They're logical, careful, formal, disciplined. Under pressure, when they get really pressed, they can become overcritical. Fear is criticism of their work. They don't want anyone to second guess them. And if you do, that causes some angst for them. Motto is, if it's not broken, let's not fix it, similar to the S style. And the favorite question is, how did you do that? How did we get from here to there? And if you see the picture I put up here is Mr. Spock for Star Trek fans, and I used the old Leonard Nimoy and the new Zachary Pinto as well, but how he was all about logic, and logic was much better than emotion. That's how a C style sees it. It's about facts and what those facts say, and that's what I believe. So they make up 27% of the population. The most analytical of the four styles. They really like to see facts and figures, detail-oriented, focusing on facts, information, proofs. So a lot of times, in my career of sales, I've called on a lot of the CFOs and/or purchasing folks or engineers, and they tend to fall into the C style because they're very structured and factual. And I had to learn, and one of the things when I understood DISC is I learned that I had to give them more facts and figures than I was even comfortable with. All right, because I fall more on that I with some D as far as my personality area. So I didn't really like to get into details, and I found out to be successful would, and so someone with a C personality or communication style would understand me. I had to be much more detail-oriented. Very logical, methodical, and set high standards. They're better in written communication. They can take time to think about it as opposed to coming up with stuff on the spot. They really don't express disagreeing views. Includes lots of facts and figures and may miss the big picture. Sometimes they can get wrapped around the axle on the facts and figures. So what worked for me with dealing with C style was I would give a high level spreadsheet when I was talking about, as in the insurance world, as most of you are. When you're talking about the loss runs or the loss pick, instead of giving all the examples, you might summarize it by year and just give them, this is what it looks like type of thing. They don't talk about opinions or abstract matters. They really, that has no meaning to them. They're very diplomatic. They're usually non-confrontational. Now, once again, on all these, they're, people are people, so they're going to be nuances. And I've had some, C-style people that will get less diplomatic if they believe you haven't given them facts. So you want to look at people that are more reserved, quiet, they proceed cautiously. They're not going to decide today that tomorrow, hey, let's go out and I'll take the day off type of thing. That's going to be planned usually in advance. Focuses on details, ask many questions, deliberate and controlled, not comfortable with physical contact, and appears reserved and timid. And don't mistake that, because the numbers or the facts are really going to dictate their thoughts. But they're not, and they need to study information to make a decision. And they will make decisions, but they need to have facts that prove that out. They could be very critical at times, but the criticism is going to be based on facts. And once again, they don't see it as a personal attack. It's just what the facts show. So what we want to do now is we've got these different personalities. And as I said, think about the last interaction you went on, sales meeting, and you sat down with somebody in their office and you saw they were a sports fan and you started talking with them. And it felt like a good conversation. But the reality is that 9 of the 10 salesmen that come through their door are talking that same way. And then it becomes just kind of, you're just in the white noise and you're like everyone else. So what I would suggest is maybe start asking questions first, observing what people talk about, how they say it, the type of words they use, the body language, going back to the 4 categories again. An influencer and the stable relator are going to be a little more relaxed and laid back in their body language, where the dominant and C's are going to be more formal and more assertive in their body language. Tonality. Very rarely will you see the steady relators or the cautious thinkers or correctness people raising their voice. But you will see that from the influencer and the dominants on a regular basis. So keep these 4 points in mind and then try to ask questions around it. So, when you guys have made your decisions in the past, and I'm not even talking insurance right now, help me understand how you went about it. And then be conscious to the type of words that they say. Like, well, we would get a group together and we would look at the different facets of it, and then it's, we would talk as a group. Or if they say, I would get the information and then I would make the recommendation or make the decision, right? That shows more action than reservation. And you can start plotting them in your mind on where they fit better. So here's a little bit more information around the disc. On the bottom, the I's and the S's are going to be helpful and friendly. Up on top, the D's and the C's are going to be a little more distant from you and logical. And then going along to the right side, the D's are going to be really focused on results and change. And once again, right, in different situations, people are going to be focused on results, but it's just, you're going to see that they're very comfortable in that and talking about that. The D's are big on influence and activity, and that goes along on the left, on the right side of the chart. And the I's are going to be all about people and positive. These are the people that are usually very positive. We can do that. I know we can get things done. And they're always going to be worried about who else is going with them or other people involved. The S's, they're going to be very thorough but patient. They're going to have standards, and then the C's are going to be very precise. It's all about facts and correctness. So let's see what that looks like when you're assessing. So, you know, the first thing to kind of get a feel, are they active or are they reserved? Now, you know, I talked about pictures on the wall, so you don't have to talk about them, but if you see more pictures of them being active, that might lead you that they're going to fall more in the D or the I side, right? Are they more interested in task orientation or people orientation? So once again, you come up with a few questions to try and figure that out. You know, I'm sure in your job you have a lot of different things pulling at you. How do you tackle that? And if they say, well, you know, I set a list and, you know, I do it that way, or I've got good people, you know, that's when you can start trying to get a better picture of how they communicate. And if you recognize that they're task-oriented and reserved, then you start narrowing it down to, you know, this is probably someone's going to fall on the C side or the S side. Or conversely, if they're reserved in people orientation, they're going to fall on the S side. The D's are going to be task-oriented and very active. The I's are going to be active but people-oriented. So once again, they want people to go with them. It isn't just about them. Where the S's, they care about people. There's people orientation, but they don't have to be in a big crowd. All right. And this slide here kind of gives you a summary. And, you know, I believe all these webinars we do, Debbie has these recorded, and you can get these. And if not, I can, well, what I'll do after today's webinar is I'll send this slide by itself to Debbie, or you can email me. My email will be on here, and I can send it to you directly. It's a quick little pocket guide, or that you can have in your portfolio to try and look over before you go and meet with someone, to try and get a better understanding of their personality. All right, I kind of, you know, ran through that. It was a little different today. My mic isn't working. I'm not hearing a lot of chatter, but I appreciate you for attending. I hope it was helpful. You know, what we want to make sure, once again, is I want you to understand the communication style of the person you're dealing with versus their hobbies, to build a better and stronger bond with them. If you can talk to people in their language, you have a much better chance of having that honest conversation and then really seeing if you have an opportunity to win business or not. This is a new email for me, some of you that have been on my webinars in the past, so obviously you can reach out to me at vae.evg@gmail.com, or my cell phone there is 502-836-4700. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you the best in your sales, and good luck out there.